Welcome back to the Leading Boldly podcast. Today we're joined by a superstar, Rich Hayes, entrepreneur, creator of the Dream Machine, and a key part of the team working with Simon Squibb to help HelpBnk come to life. Rich is best known for turning big entrepreneurial encouragement into something genuinely practical, including a van-based UK tour that invites everyday people to pitch their ideas in 60 seconds using what he calls the doorbell of dreams. These pitches are then shared and reviewed by a wider network of business leaders and potential supporters. Backed by Simon Squibb and other household names, the Dream Machine is designed to meet founders where they are, in towns, communities, and help turn a spark of an idea into real momentum. Rich, you embody everything that we're about on this show, you and the guys at HelpBnk. So we're really delighted to welcome you to the Leading Boldly podcast.
No, thank you for having me, Matt and Jenny. I do really appreciate the time to share the story and give the audience some value. I know there's so much insight that I could share from my experience and the people I've met on the road. So I really cannot wait to share this one. It really should be a fun episode.
So Rich, tell us about childhood for you. What was school like? Did you have any hobbies? What was it like being child Rich?
What a question. So my childhood was very, I would say, like normal, I suppose, traditional. I was one of three kids, so it was older brother, younger sister, and grew up in Milton Keynes. We, had quite a very steady life, to be fair. It was something that I was quite fortunate that there was sort of no major sort of disruptions in sort of my younger life, I suppose. I grew up in a place where there was actually quite a lot of opportunity for young people, I'd like to say. I think there's, Milton Keynes gets a really interesting rep, I think, as a place. It's somewhere that I call home, and not anymore, but it's a place that I think, there's a lot of opportunity for people to really grow. You've got some of the biggest companies coming out of MK now, the likes of Red Bull, Santander, just name a few. The F1, sort of the whole F1 scene is literally within 40 minutes of us. And it really is an incredible place, I think anyway. So, it's, but in terms of like growing up, went to schools, A-levels. But for me, it was always that place of where did I want to go next? There was always that part of me that was looking for something more, I suppose. There was always that piece to me that I think a lot of entrepreneurs shared, that is, what's that thing that keeps you excited, what's keep you moving? And through my late teens, I remember finding myself, I wanted to actually, my first life that I tell many people is actually, I actually wanted to be in the military. And so I thought it, when I was 18, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish university and then join up. And I was part of a community of people who were in that sort of same mindset. And from a very young age, from like 13, I was very lucky to be in an environment where I was quite like strict in terms of the audience I was around, and was allowed to go on some incredible opportunities. At 17, ended up actually heading to Buckingham Palace, met the Duke of Edinburgh, and was part of the Royal Marines 350th birthday parade, which was just a very, very random thing to be involved in at 17 years old. But I think from that moment onwards, despite whatever life would look like, I was always like, I felt like I'd achieved such a big milestone at such a young age. And I was like, okay, what next? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through this sort of cycle of, okay, you do the big thing, and then it's just like, okay, what next? And it's always been a big part of my journey, really. And so for the last the few years since then, I obviously didn't join the military, ended up getting an injury actually, and found myself trying to find my way through life. I think when I was from a young age, I'd known where I was going, and you sort of given that focus and that steer, so to speak, to then turn around at 21, I think I was at the time, so it was pretty 2016, probably slightly older than that actually, but when I remember getting this letter through the post from the Sandhurst medical officer, and I was like, oh my god, like what's next? Like, what do I do? There's no plan B. what's the path look like, and ended up deciding to myself, I was like, I've got to try and work something out, and which took me on this really random path, I suppose, through life. And I think this is where entrepreneurship kind of came into it, and just trying out different things. I think that's the beauty of like that sort of era of my childhood. Really was actually, I got to experience a lot of cool things at a very young age. I was an avid snowboarder. I was very fortunate that my mum was a ski and snowboard instructor. So from a young age, I was involved in, I one holiday a year was going snowboarding, and that was the only thing we did all year, because it was even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's still quite an expensive sport. So it was one thing a year that what we all love doing.
Ask Rich.
Go on.
How did your mum become a ski snowboarding instructor in Milton Keynes?
I can answer that. It was the first big indoor snow dome, wasn't it?
No, there must have been another reason. She must have done it somewhere else.
No, so she did. She was one of the first. Shout out to my mum here, but she was one of the first snowboard ski instructors at the snow zone in Milton Keynes. Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, but like the snow zone in Milton Keynes is actually the home of where the prototype for Ski Dubai came from. It was all the stuff that didn't work in Milton Keynes. You now have the full experience in Dubai, which is quite a remarkable place. And then about 15 years later, when I was coming out of university, me and my mum actually worked together there, which was a really random, like, sort of full circle moment. So yes, I might have been a snowboarder from a young age, but then full circle when I was 21, just out of university. Really, really cool moment. So very, very cool mum, can't complain.
So did she go there as a non-snowboarding skiing person and learn how to snowboard and ski and become an instructor?
Yeah, pretty much. As far as I know, it's changed a lot in 20 years. But she, I think from memory, she was in and out because my mum's quite entrepreneurial, as was my dad, and they're always like coming in and out of businesses. And there was this moment where she's actually, well, what a lot of people don't know about her is she used to be I count her as a famous ice skater, but she's always been in that sport of ice skating, or that sort of snow sports sort of era. And Torvald and Dean, she was competing at the same level as them in the 80s. And then I think there's always that want that she had for snow sports of some sort of description, wherever that lies, which led her to actually go, you know what, I'm going to be a snowboard instructor. It's probably a question I should ask her more as well.
Go and ask her, because I'm really interested. My cousin was voted top ski coach in Canada. He was the ski coach for the ski cross Olympic team. The crazy skiing where people like die and stuff. So he was top ski coach in Canada, but he left that quite a few years ago now because it's so dangerous and you don't do it for long.
Honestly, it's any form of extreme sports, snowboarding, skiing. Like when you see it, I remember even working the ski slopes. Some of the stories and stuff that I would see on the slopes were just, you'd have to be there to know it happened, kind of thing. And I tell some of the stories, and it's just like, you wouldn't think it happens, and it's. I think that's why people. I think it puts people off the sports, doesn't it? You hear of these like doom sort of stories, and you're like, oh my god, I never thought that would have happened. I'm just like, yep, does happen. That's what I think I loved about that sort of. When I did work in that snowboarding world, or at least in it, is that you just can have fun with it, and there's no days the same, especially working in that environment. Surprised I never went down the snowboarding sort of, going into that in a more of a, going abroad, working in, whether it's not the Alps, if it's, Japan, Asia, anywhere, right? There's so many opportunities for that sort of need. Maybe one day. There's time. I never say never. Yeah, plenty of time.
So you didn't take up that, and you didn't go into the military. So what happened? How did you end up in HelpBnk?
Oh, there's still a long story. There's still a while to go from there.
Good.
It's still a long while yet. So, ended up working on luxury boats for just under 2 years. So I lived in the south of France, not a bad place to be in the world. So this sort of brings us up to like 2019, 2020, where I was a deckhand on luxury boats, and this is where I sort of learned the lessons of, I'd say, tenacity and actually going out there and just got. It's like you learn a lot of sales tactics when you work in that industry, because you just have to put yourself out every single day, walking docks, trying to get noticed and have conversations with people. And I found when I was in those environments for long enough, you start to see the same people. And you very quickly realize just how small the yachting industry really was. There were some people that used the tactic of just sitting in the bars and just waiting for the captains to show up after a very long day. And then they'd be pestered enough that they'd get a job, which I knew would work for a few people. But for me, I was like, no, I'm going to go walk the docks and find out where these yachts are, and then check there's a maritime fleet tracking apps that you could use. You can find out when boats are coming into port and stuff. And that was sort of formed like my early 20s, really. Obviously that beautiful thing called lockdown happened. And then I was locked down on a boat in the south of France, in Toulon, for 6 months, and which isn't a bad place to be. But I do tell people that cabin fever and COVID was not rife in the same 2-week period. It's had its moment. And I ended up deciding at that moment, there was this sort of reevaluation of where I was at, and I said, actually, I do want to work in tech and help people. And I think this help concept's always been a big part of my ethos from a very young age. I relate some of it to the military. I relate some of it to people I was surrounded by growing up, my parents, and I found myself trying to find that way to help people. And I ended up going into recruitment at the time and working for a company where big on happiness in the workplace, and we very much believed in the values of the person you love, the job you do, and the place you live. If any one time in your life those three things are out of kilter, it kind of can affect the other two, or all three go out of kilter, or two. And we used to help candidates through that process, and clients for that matter. And so I did that for a few years, fell into the finance world and fintech. And this is kind of when I started to know of Simon's content. I'd connected to Simon through my recruitment network at the time, and I stayed in touch. I actually ran a podcast called The Purpose Podcast, and I asked him to come on. And at the time, he was running the Purposeful Project. And he just said, let's stay in touch. Let's carry the conversation. And 3-4 years later, I was watching his content on TikTok. I had this van at the time, still have it now. And it was just like, I was trying to find a way to essentially give his audience more support that he necessarily couldn't. And at first it was not as obvious, but the biggest issue on his TikTok comment section or his Instagram comment section was people asking when he was going to come to Manchester, when was he going to come to Edinburgh, when was he going to come to Bristol, Cardiff. You add up all the locations, and I noticed this was becoming a daily thing, and then the comment sections would go bonkers for it. So they'd say, when are you coming here? And most of the comments would get 300 or over 1,000 impressions, or likes, or shares, or people tagging them as shares. And that's when I started to notice that there was a real want for him in a different way that necessarily he couldn't provide. And so I pitched this idea of essentially traveling the UK and meeting those people on the road that he couldn't necessarily reach. And the way I framed it was very much, I want to team up with big brands, work around the UK, travel in my van, and give people an opportunity to pitch their ideas. That was the brief that I kind of pitched. And it's quite an abstract sort of dream, really. I want to travel and help people. And then fast forward a few months, it kind of, a lot of conversations later, and actually trying to make it happen, and how logistically possible was it. We started to get traction, and it came actually the back end of end of 2024 into 2025. I had a message from his team, and they were really keen with aligning with his book launch when it came out last year, What's Your Dream? I knew it was happening, but I didn't know what the van was going to look like. I didn't know what the plan was, what opportunity was going to come. I just knew that it was happening. And so we had to get quite a few brand conversations in line. get some brands to actually support and finance the project as well. So that kind of brings us up to speed in a really like sort of succinct way of saying, yeah, there was all this story, but then it kind of built to here. And that brings us up to today, really. So we're now in April 2025 at this moment in time. So yeah, that's in a real quick roundabout way. That's how we started to got to the dream van. So yeah, quite an exciting year it's been since then.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about tenacity and really kind of targeting when you were on the yachts and stuff, targeting the people you were to go to and making sure that you got in the door, which I think is one of the hardest things that entrepreneurs or people working for themselves, whether they see themselves as entrepreneurs or they just see themselves as somebody who works for themselves, banging on those doors because of potential rejection or not knowing quite what the door is. What would your suggestion be to those people going, oh, I don't know what door to knock on?
If you knock on, the more doors you knock on, the luckier you get. And I famously remember there's two stories that stand out when I was doing the dock walking. One was the day I got my first bit of day work on a yacht, and the other was when an engineer from the boat basically just told me to go away. And he told me to go away because he didn't want me to have to deal with the captain, because the captain was worse than he was. And he was very honest and fair, but that kind of knocked me for a minute. I was like, oh God. And I seem to recall it was the same day, because at one end of the dock was that one. And then I'd found out on someone said, oh no, they're looking for day work at the end of the marina. You should go speak to them. And it was a yacht called Motor Yacht Space. And the feeling of achievement of going, oh my God, I've just got that bit of day work that I didn't think was going to happen. And after that moment, it became a snowball effect, because you not only got the references, but more opportunity came off the back of it. Because as long as you stuck to what you were going to do, you achieved, you helped, you did you went over and above, it just put you in good stead for later. Because day work as a thing in yachting, day work is so hard to come by, but once you come by it, it cascades. There's loads of it, because you're trusted. As long as you've done a good job, you'll achieve more. And I think the big thing was that there was days where I was doing 18k a day, just walking, just up and down these docks, just trying to have conversations with people. And it taught me to just keep going and just keep showing up for yourself, because it's not forever. And I think there's this moment where people just stop. People just say, is this too much? Can I actually push through? And people stop. It's that sort of analogy of, look at gold, when you see that very famous analogy of picking away to get to the gold, and they're like there. And it's the same. It was the same in yachting. It was, if you just chipped away at it long enough, you would get there. And so many people just give up. They just go, you know what, my visa's run out. I've only got 3 months here. I'll have a good time, and they kind of miss the point. It's like, you've got a deadline, work within the boundaries of what you've set. It actually gives you something to move towards. It's an ambition. And thousands of people every year descend on Antibes, Palma, Fort Lauderdale as well, and want to get into the industry, but don't have the fundamental sort of like just know-how of how to get, like what to do and what not to do. And it's normally the little things, but most people in the yachting industry they want to help. They do want to give people opportunity and just show them a sort of a different way. It's an incredible industry. I always recommend it. I just think that the people that necessarily give up at the first hurdle is just because they haven't shown up enough. As well, and I saw that quite a lot. And the ones that stood out between the two, I suppose, it was the ones that were doing the miles every single day, that weren't sat in the bars waiting. They were the ones that were going out and trying to find the opportunity. And I think that's a really good analogy for entrepreneurship as well. It's just being okay with just constantly knocking and not be afraid to show up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. When you were pacing up and down, I think the next, you got out there. That was sort of step one. I think the next barrier a lot of entrepreneurs find, and I really love this analogy because I think it works really well.
Matt loves an analogy.
Did you have a favorite sort of structure of your approach? Because it's one thing to walk up and down, isn't it? And it's the next stage is you've got to actually engage a human in something.
Yeah. I normally, the normal approach, so there was always sort of two ways of looking at it, because like there were some people it depends how you are with people, right? So you sort of know if someone's clearly not interested in talking to you. I've watched people walk away from from the bridge deck aft, where normally, because they normally pull back into port. So at the back of the vessel, if you saw someone who was clearly waiting for guests to come on board, and they clocked you before you clocked them, and you watched them jump out the shop, you knew they probably wasn't the right conversational time. But normally it was just a really simple approach of, excuse me, was it possible to speak to the first mate or the captain? If not, one of the engineers, just to have a conversation. It's like, I'm not interested. And I always used to come at the approach of, I'm not interested in having a job. I'm just interested in getting some advice. And the moment I came from the approach of advice versus I'm looking for work, the opportunity that was created was far greater, because people genuinely wanted to help and give advice, and I think where a lot of people were going wrong, where they were so busy trying to they were focused on the objective, not necessarily the journey to the objective. And I found that the people actually that were just wanting to share their knowledge and experience, most people, if they've got time, they'll give you the floor to just sort of stay in the position. And then what I found was that people would invite me on board and have a conversation, have a chat. And I used to come back at the end of the day and talk to people, and they were like, how have you done that? And I said, just by having people, they're humans at the end of the day. They're no different to anyone else. Like, just because there's the hierarchical sort of thing of there, I get it. But at the end of the day, they got there somehow. And normally it was probably the same way that we're all trying now. And I say that for a lot of people is, I think when I came at it from that perspective, most people actually were more warming to actually have a conversation. And I think that, and then that worked later in recruitment. That worked now. When I said to Simon many years ago, do you want to come on the podcast? It wasn't a yes, but it was a let's stay in touch. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean the conversation has to happen now, in 18 months, 2 years later. It doesn't, as long as it happens at some point along the road, right? So yeah, it alludes to my book that I was thinking about, but that will come later.
So have you written a book?
No, no. It's one of my books. Obviously, like one of the questions being, I won't go into it just yet, but I was thinking about books that have inspired me, and there's a book in mind that always comes to mind. So yeah,
awesome.
Yes, I understand the. We'll come to it later.
So, how many people, Rich, have pushed the doorbell of dreams?
Cool. So it's a hefty number. So we've had over 2,500 submissions in the last 12 months, and it's been quite the journey. We tend last year, when we were partnered with Virgin, we had just over 1,200 submissions to the doorbell, and similarly to the dream van, we had roughly about the same actually. So that was quite a remarkable journey to see the amount of people turn up every month and pitch their ideas to the doorbell. Is really quite an amazing thing to be able to support, witness, and also review as well, because I'm involved in that process.
Yeah. So what happens when you press the doorbell? You give your pitch. What happens?
So there's a couple of things that happen when you pitch the doorbell. The whole point is knowing what you need, and if we're with them in person, we mentor them, we sort of give them a frame, what to work with. So I actually take Daniel Priestley's model with who you are, what do you do, why you do it, what do you need. I've just dubbed it down from the 6 points because it isn't necessarily needed for what we do, but we take people through that process. So it's really important as an entrepreneur to know where you are at the first step. Like pitching when you're starting out as a business owner, it's not really something that comes to the forefront of your mind. But if you end up going down SEIS or some form of, fundraising at some point in the future, you're going to be doing a lot of this pitching. So it's good to get good at it early, and that's what the frame of the Doorbell of Dreams is for. So once you pitch the doorbell, what happens is we take that footage and we review it, and we try a couple of things for the individual. We look to see if we can introduce them to brands we work with or create opportunities. We try to tell people, be super specific about what they need, down to, I want to work with Kendrick Lamar or Will Smith. Something really, really specific. And the reason we try to get people so specific on this is because we can, in some instances, we have that relationship. Like, we do have a relationship with Will Smith. Not that I can personally say, call on him right now and say, could you help with this dreamer? But it allows us to create our access and opportunity. So we would reach out to these brands or these individuals and tell them, we're working with this dreamer. This is what we're doing. We'd love to see if we could build hero stories with this person. So a hero story being an interesting experience with that dreamer who's going through that process, who we can then take through to actually helping them achieve something. So when we build the video, we build a degree of, we set them a challenge. So for there's probably something that we tell them to do prior to it or during the video, and then they go away and do that thing. And then at the end of that video, we create a narrative of, okay, did they achieve it? Did they not? Are they going to achieve their dream as a result of doing it? So we do that with some dreamers that come through the doorbell. We take the narrative and we build that into content that we post online, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the rest of it. We also have there's a couple of offers that we have on our back end that we are building at the moment that help support businesses starting out. So we have our starter kit offer, which is essentially a number of business tools to help people get started. What a lot of people starting businesses forget is that there's a lot of early stage costs in building a business that we don't always talk about. And that's where our starter kit comes in really beautifully, really. It allows people who are just getting started to get access to tools for their business, but also more importantly, get access to mentorship. And that mentorship comes in the form of our advisors that we have in our team who are experienced across marketing, sales, any amount of business knowledge that we cover it. So we give access to a starter kit mentorship, is essentially to give them a framework to help build further. We also, internally as well, so to that, we also have our accelerator. So we signpost people who are coming through the doorbell that there is other opportunity for support and help. So we just had our first accelerator in January, which was completely free. We took people through a 4-week accelerator and gave them we gave 3 finalists at the end of it $2,500 to push forward to help their business further. So the doorbell is a step in your entrepreneurial journey for us. It's a place where you can get access and support to move yourself forwards. And we've been building this in a way that allows more people to get access, more people to get help, and more importantly, out of all of this, is getting people helping people. I think as an entrepreneur, having a place where you can work together to build is super important, and we're seeing it every single day on platform. So yeah, that's for us. It's a place of, this is where I'm at now, but this is all the extra opportunity that I have now to lean on and get that further support from.
What surprised you most when you've been out on the road? Like, what kind of things come up that you go, oh, I wasn't expecting that?
I've had so many. There's everything from some of the opportunities that come your way, like everything from, I've seen people come up to me who have been on Dragon's Den, who went on, got investment, and then had to turn it down because of something happened. I've also seen the very other side of the scale where I've seen people who just want to get out of a situation where they are. They just want out. They just want to, like, the circumstances have just been put against them, whether through some form of bad luck, something personally that relates to their health, which has put them in this horrible loop where they've been trapped by the systems that are designed to protect us, and they end up can't getting out of the systems and they're now trapped in. and it's down to stuff like, just being able to work, whether it's for some form of, they've got some form of disability or something that stops them from actually being able to work, and as a result they can't find work. The stuff down to like the minute details like that. So yeah, there's been some just really remarkable things. Like I've seen people that have built entire like brands where they've got so much deep history and knowledge that they've built into their product. Like I remember I met one person in Norwich who built this whole book series, but it was like the level of depth was similar to the Lord of the Rings, if not more. They had this whole like lore that sat behind it, and I just was there like, how long have you spent on this? And they're like, about 4 years. And I was just like, whoa, you've got this whole ecosystem and you can see the passion. And I know that that person will succeed because they've just built all this in-depth knowledge and they just care about what they're building. I think it's just the level of care that people have and passion. And when you see that come through at the doorbell, at the van, or, at an event, like when you see that, it's infectious because you feel inclined to try and help them further. Then you've seen the really weird and random stuff. I watched a guy pitching a flamingo outfit. That was quite a remarkable thing.
Wasn't called Jacob Cass, was he? Sorry, Jacob's a good friend of ours. He's a brand builder. I don't know if you know of him, in Australia, and he has flamingos everywhere.
It works though. It gets people's attention. Like I say to people, bring props, bring something that's going to let you stand out. Right? I think a lot of people forget that it's about having fun when you're pitching. It's not about like, if you're like, I see people like looking at their phones like, hi, my name is this and I do this and I want to build this community because this app would have, and you see them reading it off and it doesn't have the same feel. But if you're looking directly at the camera and having a conversation with the person you're talking to and just letting it free flow, and then you're wearing something crazy, it gets people's attention. We just had it today as an example. We just had an International Women's Day event yesterday, and the winner was a woman called Kim, and she's built. It's called Kindness for Success. It's coaching for women, but specific to around how through burnout and how you deal with that. And we were talking. And what stood out for me was the props. And she's wearing a wash cap, and she's got like a scrubber, and she's wearing a towel over the dress that she was wearing, and she has this board, and she takes it all off, and then she's got this board that shows all the statistics, and it's a brilliant pitch. But there's stuff like that, and for us when we were reviewing it, we were saying that stands out because it gives the attention to the audience. So yeah, that's what we say to people anyway.
Yeah, love that. Love that. I spent a few years working on the production team at Dragon's Den, and it was quite often the pitches that opened with some big flourish or whatever that got attention early on. Of course, they've got to back it up later with some solid details and numbers and all the rest of it. But to get them straight away, it was often something boldly different, I would say.
Yeah, I've got so many questions I could ask you about Dragon's Den from behind the scenes, right? Like the weird thing is you probably know the person I'm referring to, one of the people I'm talking about as well. Like it's the behind the scenes stuff that we're trying to create this offer for people that shows that there's, it's like a friendlier sort of like you don't have to have everything prim and proper and ready. It's like it's just about moving and giving people this scene to essentially give them like almost a drive. I remember this specific person I'm talking about here. She came to us in Manchester at the van. And she was down and out. She'd thrown the towel. She was ready to close the business, and had a conversation with her. She showed me the product. She had this investment that she had to turn down from one of the dragons. It wasn't exactly a small sum of money. It was £200,000, I believe, and she just looked done. She just looked like she was done. And then I had a conversation with her, got her to pitch, put something out on socials for her from my side as well. And then I was so inspired by it that just an opportunity presented itself that allowed us to take her to Ideas Fest. And she pitched on stage to Simon, Nick Pritchard, Daniel Priestley and Amelia Sordell. with a cap worth of around sort of north of $1 billion between the four of them. And, you know, up on stage, and you've got investors in the audience, because we knew there was a couple of people from the bigger sphere that they were keen to speak to her afterwards as well. So it's, you know, for an opportunity from pitching to a van with a doorbell on the back of it to going on stage at Ideas Fest, it's a completely full circle moment. So yeah, there's stuff like that happens that I have to pinch myself sometimes, because it really is quite awesome to see that we can take someone from there to there in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really love the fact that, particularly with Simon's stuff, that, you know, he is talking a lot to people who don't have it all figured out. Sometimes just the spark of an idea. There's like, here's the idea, don't know the rest, but, you know, and he's able to bring that on and nurture it. It's great.
That's for us as well. Like mine was just an idea. It was a wacky, bonkers idea, which was, can we take a van around the country and find a way to help support entrepreneurs? Like that's the frame of it. Like the brief that I sort of created was, my dream is to travel and help people and do it in a van, because I love van life. And at the time I was really into it. And that was the brief that I pitched to Simon back in 2024. And, you know, to this day, I still love traveling and I still love helping people. And I just do that just in a bit of a different way. So yeah, it's really awesome.
One of the things I love about Simon, because I do follow him and see him on TikTok and all the things. And it was actually funny because I commented on one of his posts and I got like over 1,000 likes for my comment. I was like, I don't get 1,000 likes for anything. But anyway, that's besides the point. But I really like his message about education and the system. And I've got 2 autistic daughters, autistic ADHD, were not fit for the education system. I didn't realize until way too late. So they're now going on a different journey. And we always say to the girls, you're just on a different journey. It might take you longer. It might be a different path, but it's just a different journey to what everybody else is traditionally doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I really enjoy Simon's take on that, because I think there's so many people out there who school and the system just doesn't fit. And then they're trying to be entrepreneurial, but they don't know where to start with that. And there's so much trial and error when you start out.
There really is. And the beauty of what Simon's, as a team, we are trying to achieve is show that there is another way. Show that there is an opportunity to build something for yourself. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to school, does not necessarily mean you have to go to university. It's just showing and signposting that this exists, and you don't have to do that thing. Don't get me wrong. We know it's, I bleat on about it, saying, you know, there are certain, you know, roles in society, so to speak, whether you're a scientist or a chemical engineer, you want to be an astronaut, there's certain things you have to do, which includes going to university and doing that thing. And I strongly see the need for that. And I will, you know, to advance ourselves as a society, as a race, or, you know, as a communion, as I call it, the way in we're able to do that is by taking people through this process of going to university, and I strongly believe it that is required. But there's also the other side of it, where I was, you know, if I look at back on my life, and yes, I went to university, yes, I got a degree in international relations, which was all relevant to the military at the time. But since then, I've only ever had to really use it and refer to it in conversation with people who are interested in the subject. I don't necessarily talk about it. I'm also very aware that my degree sits on a very political spectrum of, like, you know, I want to talk about politics or you don't. And, you know, since then it has served me. It showed me my love for traveling, but doesn't necessarily mean that there was another way to achieve the same thing that I'm doing now. Just showed it in a bit of a different way.
I've got a degree in fashion. I've never used it. I hated it. I was like, I didn't need that degree at all. It just felt like something we should do. But, you know, I was going to say 20 years ago, but it's probably almost...
It's a bit longer now, darling.
It's probably a bit longer than that.
Yeah.
It was just what you did. That was the path you followed. And that was the belief system and the value system that I had until all of a sudden I saw my own kids struggling so much and went, oh, maybe I have to change my belief system. And you're right. If you want to be a doctor, we don't really want doctors that haven't been to university and learned all the stuff. It's not ideal.
Like if you haven't studied some form of anatomy, like there's a bit of a problem. If I'm having an operation and you're telling me you don't know where this bone is in the body and you're moving out something else, I'm worried for my life.
Yeah, exactly. But there are lots of things that, as you say, you don't need, and you never got a degree because you didn't need it. You worked your way through the system, and
no, absolutely. But a lot of vocational training, I suppose, like on the job learning and on the career path learning, just not a formal education.
And a lot of creative learning as well. I think that's the thing that the education system doesn't really allow for, is the creative learning.
I agree. Totally agree. I think but I've seen it as well. The difference is that I've seen, like, some of the schools I've been to on the road, like, I've seen the creative learning, I've seen the creative freedom. But the moment it's suppressed you can see where it's kind of like, you don't need that anymore. You don't need that anymore. I saw it a lot in Wales, and renowned for Wales having a lot of media and creative artists coming out of Wales is because the creative freedom the Welsh Assembly offer to schools is very different to what you get here in England. And I went into the school, this one in Bridgend, and I remember going around one of the arts departments, and just the sheer volume of opportunity and craftsmanship that was offered to the students at such a young age. I was like, I've never had that. Like, you see it. So, and I was like, oh my God. And then I was talking to one of the heads of the school, and she's saying, the amount of creative students that then go on to, if they go to Bristol University or something like that, they go into some of the biggest schools or companies in the country as a result of it. It's massive. And it's like, you can see why, because it's encouraged. But it's just it's just not a universal offering that I've not seen. It's not. What you see in one school could be very different to what you see in another. And yes, they're followed by some form of guideline, but 9 out of 10 times there's not like a unilateral thing that every school's following.
No, absolutely. We work quite closely with a music academy who work specifically with primary schools. And even county to county, school by school, very different approach to whether music should even be included.
Yeah, and his dream is to bring music for free to the kids that really can't afford it. So we were talking to him this morning about his kind of ideas and dreams, and we were talking about getting corporate sponsorship to pay for the kids who parents just can't afford for them to have a music education. Because it's something ridiculous, like only 46% of schools in the country have music education at all.
It even goes into like laptops as well, doesn't it? Like, how many schools don't have laptops still, even after that? Well, how long has the laptop been around now? Like, when I was fortunate to learn one at a young age, but not every. I didn't realise that wasn't a universal thing.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy. So, what has changed in your entrepreneurial thinking and journey, having done this now for a few years and seen so many pitches, seen the results? What shifted for you?
The ones that stand out, it's the most dangerous thing you can have this year is an idea. Like, that's the truth. We're moving, like, as a society, and the technological advancements that are happening just in this conversation. Like, by the end of this conversation, there'll be something new out. By tomorrow morning, there'll be something even bigger. And that's the scariest moment, I think, as a civilization we have experienced, because it's just moving lightning fast. And that's changing every day, because there are tools now that I use that, if I knew were available 2 years ago, I would have been eating someone's arm off for it. There's that sort of advanced. But I think the big piece is that traditional way of working and thinking is moving in a way that I don't think people are ready for. And that's both scary in one respect for some people, but I'm trying to show people that there's an opportunity and that there's a way of doing it, whether that is fractional. Work for multiple companies. We have the ability to do that now. And there's a number of contacts that I always recommend to people to, if you want to go down that road of thinking that there's availability to that. But I also tell people that there's a different way of thinking the problem you're trying to solve, because most people are like, oh no, I want to go build this thing. And if I do this, it will allow me to do this. But there's probably someone that's already doing it. So what I try to encourage people to do is reach out and work with that brand, or reach out and see what they're doing differently and offer yourself as a service to support that brand in a byproduct of what you're doing and learn from them. And a lot of people think, I want to do it for myself and stuff like that. But the thing is, if we work together on the problems we're trying to solve, there's a lot of more opportunity that actually is created. And, there's a lot more fulfillment. Obviously, there's this piece that says, oh, but I don't own it and I don't do this. It's like, but you might find that you don't enjoy that thing that you're trying to build. And you might have a series of lessons and learnings from that experience that you don't want to take that forwards. It's like the van. The van is a brilliant methodology. It's a brilliant concept. It's a mobile movement. It works so well. But if the van breaks down and there's a problem and, I can't get the van to the next location, there's a lot of like bits that people don't necessarily see. But the principle of what it stands for, of opportunity and pushing people and giving motivation, but also giving them a place to speak very openly and freely and get some form of advice, that's what it's there for. And that's the difference with that concept. But I think the big thing that had changed was like what I was looking for initially when this all started. And part of me was like, social media exposure, a couple of thousand followers, just, maybe a brand sponsor. But I think the actual work that goes behind getting a sponsor, getting people to support your mission, is really tough. It's actually a real steep curve to find brand sponsors. Like, you've got to really know what the value is you're offering to that brand. And this was something that I had to learn very quickly in the earlier days, was that the value in which you offer a brand needs to be super clear as early as it possibly can. And it could evolve, but you need to know that what you're offering is going to do something of service and value to that brand, and sell on the outcomes and then over deliver. And I think in the earlier days, I didn't quite get that. I didn't quite see that actually there's a lot more bits that go into this than just, we travel and we do pictures and stuff like that. Like, there's so much more concrete to it than just that, essentially. So yeah, there's been some huge moments of change. But I think the one that I've been watching more recently is just how quickly technology is moving, and trying to find the best way to use it for the audience we're building, both on a personal brand level and at a business level.
Yeah.
How do you decide where you're going in the van?
So the van was last year. It was, the original plan was essentially, I want to go around it. Like, it was as simple as that. It was, I just want to go around the UK because I've not seen a lot of the UK. I've seen more of the world than I have the UK. So I said, let's just go around it. Let's just try and do it. And actually, it was a lot harder than I thought at the time. And the initial thinking behind it was, let's just see how much we can get round. And we initially, the earlier thinking was we didn't need licenses, we didn't need certain go-aheads to make it happen. That was very wrong. That was actually, we needed every city we went to, we needed some form of permission to be there because it's a commercial vehicle, it has commercial branding. And we realized that pop-up culture is dead for a very good reason, and it's because the amount of permissions and legislation that you have to go through with councils. And it meant that for all the locations we went to, we had to get permissions from every single council we went to, and we got around it different ways, private landlords. There were certain things that worked, but we realized that it's actually really hard to just park up somewhere and just make something happen. We were lucky that we got some really unique locations, notably the I360 Brighton, Wembley, where else? Norwich Football Club. Oh, where else?
Have you been to Derby?
We didn't go to Derby. No, there was one of the locations we didn't cover off. There was, I think that in the earlier days, the biggest thing was just the sheer volume of people that wanted it, that were saying, "Oh, could you come here? Oh, could you come there?" And I think what I ended up doing and disrupting was there was this sheer volume of inbound that I was getting. So I basically redirected all the stuff that Simon was getting, that people were asking for him to be there. And I became that person that people wanted to which was great. But it also, I didn't quite astounded by the sheer inbound that I got as a result of it. But it was remarkable. And, I think it offered an opportunity. And I think what we realized is it doesn't matter if it's a van, it could be a mobile activation. It can, we're leaning more on our community to be putting on these events around the country to allow us to spread this message, and, leading into different organizations that are doing this as well. So we can act and be present in these places where the people are that we want to reach.
Absolutely, because we met at an indoor event, a sort of trade show exhibition, and you had a doorbell there in a little booth. So yeah,
the doorbell worked so well. Now it's not a doorbell anymore; it's an iPad, right? So it's evolved. We've taken the format of what worked, and we've changed it up again. Just trying to change the whole format a little bit and just improve it from where it was just a Ring doorbell.
And what you've just described about realizing that going from town to town was not as simple as you thought it was going to be, those are the sort of things that people just go, "Oh, there's no point. I'll just not bother." And you could have done that. You could have gone, "Oh, it's just too blimmin' hard. I'm not going to bother." And I think that's kind of the message, isn't it? There's always a way around things. And the other thing, so I want you to respond to that, but also I've got this image of you scratching off one of those foil maps of the UK. I've done that one. I've done that one.
So, did we have? I think we had a pin board. I seem to remember we had this pin board. I seem to remember it was a pin board. But it's not even that long ago, and I'm forgetting what we used. But we did have something like that, and the one thing we realized was just my life became location planning. My life became sending emails every day to get brands, calling businesses to try and help. If it wasn't for a few very good people who were willing to just support and just knew the areas that we were working in, that basically secured all these locations for us, that took off such a load. And it was places that I never would have got into. I wouldn't known. When you don't know these areas, it's like when you start a business in a new country. The best way to start a business in a new country is get someone who's done it in that country already. Don't try and do it yourself. And what I learned to do earlier on was actually just outsource it to people in the areas that were willing to help you. And they allowed us to find some incredible locations. Whether it was down at I'm just thinking of two seaside places that we went to that were really good, which was Plymouth, which was Sutton Harbour in Plymouth. That was an amazing location, down by a venue there that had the land ownership for outside the front. And then Torquay Bay, which was just awesome, right outside Pierpoint. Fish and chips. It's a very well famous fish. I didn't know this at the time. I do now. And those two locations were two of my favorite days of the tour, actually, just because the people we met, the conversations, and what was so amazing was, which we found out later in the day, which leads to an earlier conversation we had. There was a couple who was there was a couple in a hotel room looking over the pier, and below was us. And they were watching the commotion around the van and what was going on. And they were seeing people start to walk up to the van, and then they were questioning it, and then they would walk away. And you could almost see the thought process in real time of them debating whether to come and have a chat with us. And they said on numerous occasions that this happened, because they came down and they were like, what's going on here? And we're telling them what we were doing. And they actually ended up buying quite a few books to give away to people just on the fly. But they were so inspired by this way of thinking of like, I want to go and have a conversation. I don't know. Should I go? And it's stuff like that for me really stood out last year, was these people that they didn't have to come and show themselves, didn't have to come and see what was going on, but they were so intrigued and inspired by what had been going on that they were just like, yeah, you know what, let's go and have a look. And we're not doing anything, we're just sat up here. So yeah, there's those moments that you don't necessarily see all the time that end up being the most inspiring.
You're giving away all of this stuff for free, but of course it has to be a business because you can't do everything for free. So how does it work as a business model? Because I'm sure there's, I think particularly in the coaching community, we're great for, let's do loads of stuff for free because we want to help people, but we've still got to pay our bills.
Yeah, so it's a heavy freemium model, really heavy. But so whether it's affiliate marketing, brand deals, brand partnerships, there are free flagships. So we are very fortunate in that some of the people working our team are some of the best in the world at what they do. And we have people that have worked for Alex Hormozi and Layla Hormozi. We have people that have worked for Max Kalenko and Ali Abdal. So that allows us a degree of leverage. And I think that with Simon's audience and the sheer presence that he has online, last month we did 400 million impressions online. That's just insane. We're doing more views than the BBC at the moment. And there's not many personal brands that can say that. And there's not many personal brands that can leverage that in a way that allows us to have some really unique conversations with some of the top brands of the world. And that's how we do it, really. It's but because of that, those brands do want the access to that audience, because there's something in that messaging, whether it's what's your dream, whether it's the van, whether it's me as a personal brand, whether it's any of the other individual personal brands that are operating within the business, it all acts as a conduit for further engagement and further people wanting to support the mission. And we're just building that further. I think that there's different ways as well that we're looking to expand this with certain funding sort of conversations that are coming later. And we're just getting, honestly, I'm quite new to I've been in the ecosystem for a little while now, but like the actual wider team have been going 5-6 years. And it sounds crazy to say we're just getting started, even 6 years in, but we are just getting started. And the further conversations that will be coming in the next 12 months I believe will change lives, more so than what we're seeing right now. And our biggest mission at the moment is that we're focusing currently is trying to find a way to support 700,000 students that have just come out of university who can't find a job. Like, how do we support those people? Like, there's no sustainable model that says you've got 700,000 people that haven't got work. Like, they want opportunity, they want to succeed, but we haven't got anything to give them. And it's through no amount of applying to jobs that's the issue. It's actually something deeper that we probably aren't looking at in the right way. But we're making strides in solving that issue slowly and giving people a bit of a boost. So that's all to come.
I just want to. That's amazing, by the way, and we'll come back to that in a second. But I just want to underline something in a lot of red pen for the people watching. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've currently got more eyes on what you guys are doing than the BBC have.
Yes,
largely for free through social media and personal brand. Is that correct?
Bang on. That's remarkable.
There isn't, and yet lots of people still don't know you exist. So we bang on about this all the time. You can literally not shout loud enough about what you do because people don't. We were just watching Gordon Ramsay's recent documentary and we thought it was brilliant, but we were like, how do we not know this restaurant opened a year ago? Because we love restaurants and we love food and we love fine dining and we follow Gordon Ramsay. But it took for his documentary for us to know that he'd opened a restaurant in London in the highest building a year ago. Like, mental, how does that happen? It's mental. You cannot shout loud enough, and business is not quick.
This is something that doesn't matter what time of day. Like, you cannot move, even though we're getting the views, right? What I try to show people is that we just have to keep banging the drum and keep showing up and keep doing the thing. There's conversations like this. It's conversations that people just don't know. You don't know what you know until you know it. And we will keep doing what we do to help people. All we want to do every single day is just help someone. My mission is to help someone new every single day. And to this day, and it doesn't, and how I define those parameters as well is it could be very subjective. Well, you can just go and help someone with their shopping, yeah, fair, you could, but actually in a meaningful way, in the business sense, is actually probably where I can probably give the most value. And that's how I try to frame it. So every day I'm trying to do that. And I think with Simon's content, it's just, he's got such a unique position, and that position is what's your dream, because it just gets you thinking about something, and it doesn't matter how old you are. I had someone who was 85 pitch, and they hadn't lived their dream, and they came to me and said, I've had this dream for this long and I really want to make it happen. How can we and whether they might have 15 years to still live out this dream, but they were so driven to make it happen, and just because they read the book. And that's the spark of the conversation that allows this question. And the way it is perceived and discussed is purely subjective, right? The way I think of what's your dream, the way you guys think of what's your dream, or to anyone else listening, like it's a really eye-opening question that we just use it to allow for questioning, like, and just open that thought process of, actually, what do I want to do? What is my dream? What do I love doing? What's my passion? It's just those spark conversations, and that's the beauty of it.
What would you say to the people that do say it's too late they've missed the boat, it's too late to live their dream?
Say if you did that one thing every single day for the next 5 years, that one thing that you said you didn't want to do, and you did it, and 5 years later you achieved it. But you didn't do that thing for the next 5 years. And you turn up 5 years later on your door, you at 5 years older, and you say to yourself, I wish I did that thing. I guarantee you the result that you would prefer to have is the thing that you said, I showed up every single day for 5 years and I made it happen. That, like, there's the frame of guilt versus the frame of just doing, and the result, and it's just showing up, like, even if it's an hour a day, like it doesn't have to be something that you're, selling your soul to the devil for, right? But obviously, if it's a dream, you kind of probably want to at some point really take it quite seriously. But it's giving someone the time. And one of the biggest things that people come to me about is, I have no time. I have no money, and I would argue most people have an hour a day free. And if they have an hour a day free, just put yourself into an environment that allows you to achieve that thing. Or go out and find a familiar group of people who also are trying to do something similar to you. And that does take, there's parts of that. But you could spend that hour a day trying to find that group of people that you want to relate to and spend that time with, which will then encourage the cycle of actually spending time on the thing you want to work on. So, to those people that are feeling like that, I totally get it. But there is another way of looking at it. And that's what we're trying to show people, is that if you just create that space for yourself, the reward, I know you can't, when you can't see it right now, but if you could see it in 12 months from now, the difference in me as a person, just because I sat down and started writing the hard things, as it says in Simon's book, write the hard things down. And as a result of doing the hard things, I am where I am today because of doing the hard things. And that was just a really simple exercise. And I'm actually going back through the process of doing that same exercise again now because of how valuable it was to me in my journey. So it's a really unique question to answer, because it's like everyone will have a different take on it. But at the same time, it's just as a way to give people a bit of a sense of, would you rather have the regret, or would you rather be talking to people saying you did the thing that you said you were going to do?
Yeah. And there's always hard stuff in life, like always. So you just choose whether you do the hard that's going to benefit you towards the future you want, or you do the hard that means you're going to be not living the life you want. And I always say, exactly as you've said, the same time passes. 5 years doesn't not pass. It passes. So you choose how that passes. And whether that's passing, going, oh, no, I've not got time, or I haven't got the resources, or I haven't got this, or I haven't got that, haven't, 5 years is still going to pass.
And that's the thing I try to say to people is, like, what would you rather have? Like, most people will say, I don't want to live with the regret. And that's that's fine. Like, but would you rather have the conversation said that you succeeded? 9 out of 10 people will say they'd rather have that. So, and it's just trying to find a way to demonstrate that. And not everyone will listen to it, and not everyone will take that action. That's totally fine. But then there'll be a moment where something happens in your life where you go, actually, and it could be a health thing, it could be you losing someone, it could be anything. But there'll be a moment that comes around, and it will be the smallest thing that you don't even think about in some instances. And it could be someone walking past you on the street, and they say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go do that thing. Mine was just writing things down and doing that, just ticking them off one by one, and slowly, within 3 months, we from getting the initial yes and reading Simon's book, from January to April, so about 3 and a bit months it took, but we made it happen. But I had to stop waiting as well. Like I think people wait for permission to start, which is the most dangerous thing you could do for yourself. Especially when you say you're waiting for someone else. That's probably one thing that I advise most people not to do, is don't wait for someone, just do it. And they'll probably see it online later. And then they were like, oh yeah, we had this conversation before. Do you want to do something? And they were like, oh yeah, sure, let's go. So that's what I try and say to people. So please don't wait, just do it.
Great advice.
Yeah, really great advice. It's, so the future then, and so you've conquered a lot of dreams, and I'm not going to rob Jenny of the chance to become Simon with you now and ask you the question, so go for it.
What's your dream?
Well done.
my dream, as quoted to Simon, was to travel the UK and help people. My dream now is to travel the world and help people, and that can come in multiple forms. Help is a universal thing. It comes in multiple ways. If it was in the business sense, I'm doing it now. But there are conversations I have with people every single day where you see the spark, you see people light up. We're currently trying to launch the dream van concept in America at the moment with a dreamer out there. And we're coming up close on making it happen. We don't know if it's happening yet. We're just trying to see if we can pilot it. But if we can, we're about to make someone else's dream happen. And knowing the experience I had here in the UK, I can't wait for them to have it in America, because it would be epic to see how far they can take their personal journey. So, yeah, I think as we go forwards, it's just about how many more people we can help on this mission, in a small way or a big way. It doesn't matter as long as we do it. Yeah,
love it.
So how do people find the van, Rich, in the UK? How do they find the van, or how do they get in touch with HelpBnk?
So the dream van has sadly come to an end, but we have relaunched the proposition of the van and the concept of it and what is required. So we're traveling UK events wide through events like #events, Festival of Entrepreneurs, Founders Playground, Ideas Fest. We'll be doing flagship events all across the UK. The way they can find those events is on HelpBnk. So you go on to helpbank.com. When you open the front screen on the far right-hand side, it will say events. You click that tab and you can find a series of virtual and in-person events that are running all the way through the year. The next event we'll be running is on Wednesday as part of Elite Business Live in London. So yeah, and if it's not that, there's multiple through the year. We also have our event doorbell in Dubai, and we're looking to launch multiple locations around not just the UK, but around the world in the next 12 months. So there's so much more to come, so many more announcements to share. I think people aren't quite aware of what's about to come. And then we have the America happening as well. So there's that piece to it too.
Amazing.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait to follow your journey and see you at more events. It'd be, really good.
Can't wait.
Yeah. So we have a bit of a tradition on the show. We close with me pretending that I'm on Desert Island Discs. And so I'm going to ask you for a book, a piece of music, and a tool or framework that has had real impact on your journey that you'd like to share with our audience.
Cool. I always use this. I always think about this book. So my book of choice is Matthew McConaughey, Green Lights.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome book. And I referred to it earlier, but life is a series of red, amber, green lights. Sometimes they're not always amber, but then they become green, red become amber. It's a beautiful approach book.
And did you listen to it on Audible?
I read it, and I'm terrible for reading as well. Apparently it's better on Audible, I heard, because it's in his voice.
Oh, but it's his voice.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely, it's one of our favorites.
Yeah, revisit it on Audible.
Yeah, okay, that's one for me. So that's my go-to. I love green lights. I think what I loved about reading it, was I imagined he tells it like he tells it like he is actually an actor as well. So like he makes it cinematic. So you're like visualizing like him building a tree house, and it was the best summer we ever had building this tree house. Like, that's just epic. The way he talks about it, it's like he clearly loved his childhood, even with his dad and his life with his dad. It's just a really beautiful way of telling stories. How he met his wife, kids, then it brings you up to speed with COVID and what happened, everything from Dallas Buyers Club all the way through to just everything he's done. It's just epic book.
It is epic.
So for your desert island, I think you're in for a treat with green lights. And I have two songs, but for the purpose of this, I think this is a better song, which is Dion Wanderer. And Dion Wanderer is a timeless classic for me, but it's a song that sort of defined last year for me in quite a lot of ways. Never in one place. I roam from town to town. So that's my go-to for that. And so my inspirational quote, or like something that's kind of got me through my entrepreneurial journey, which leads into my framework as well. So if you stay small enough, long enough, you'll be big enough soon enough.
Oh, yes, that's got my brain whirring.
So and it depends how you look at it as well, right? So if you just keep beating the drum, turning up every day, and then 1 minute a video ago, or like, it could be anything, it could be the business. There's so many ways to look at it. And then, which builds into my framework, which we use here in the Simon Squibb HelpBnk ecosystem. If we have a problem in the business, the way we have to deal with it is we have to go away and find the two solutions to the problem, and then present them. And then we present which one then we present which is the best solution. And so sometimes you don't always know what the problem is, but sometimes when you think about it in a bit of a different way, is different ways to solve the problem. And that allows you to come back to sort of center ground and be like, actually, there is multiple ways of thinking the problems that we're dealing with sometimes. And we use this for whether it's our doorbell production systems that we use in the back end for dealing with all this process. How do we automate it? Putting the frameworks and automations in place to just build the whole brand. As we scale, we need more of this stuff in place sooner rather than later. So yeah, that was taught by our CRO. He came to me and said, I understand the problem you're having, but I need you to find two solutions first and then come present to me the one that you think is the best. And I'll work you through both solutions and see if it can work. And that has stood with me ever since. So every time I speak to my CCO, we'll sit down and we'll mind map out what it looks like, and then go away, solve the problems, or try and find a way that you think is the right problem, and then come back and then present it in that way.
Love it.
Yeah, really good. Really, really good. I think we'll be implementing that too.
So much stuff we needed to hear today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that everybody listening will also have that. Oh, yeah, I needed to hear that.
I think sometimes with problems, being an overthinker, my big thing is like, sometimes we've got to just take ourselves away out of the problem itself. Like, sometimes we could be the problem and we don't realize it. And you need someone else to sort of look at it from a different angle. I had it today when I was working through doorbell stuff, and I was working through some pitches for International Women's Day, and there was something my CCO said to me, and it was not until he saw how I was working that he realized there was a quicker way to doing it, and he showed me what it was. And I said to him, I appreciate you. So, I was looking at the problem the wrong way. I was the problem. That my perfection was the reason that was holding me back a little bit. So yeah, I'm glad that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. We really look forward to seeing you in the future and at various events and things. And thanks so much for sharing your really valuable time with us today and also your experience. It's been great.
No, anytime. Thank you, Matt and Jenny, for having me today. It's been an amazing hour and a half. I can't believe the time's flown by so quickly.
I know, it's really flown, hasn't it? Thank you for being here.